Tropical storm Idalia is moving into South Carolina, and pretty soon it's going to move back offshore. We'll let you know what, if anything, that means. Into the east, we've got Hurricane Franklin, which has been giving Bermuda a bit of a rough time with some rain and wind this afternoon and evening. But that's moving on along as well. We are thinking ahead to what is going to be, I think, a very, very nice end of the summer with the weather that we're setting up for the Labor Day weekend, and we still have tomorrow and Friday before we get there. So hitch on a ride and join the Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County on Long Island. Mulch, topsoil, sand, salt this coming winter, and of course everything you need to make sure your home's got the right hardware. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And of course, as we all know, the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. Don't forget the .com.
Never forget the .com. Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system and join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board to the Tempest website, and it's also on the descriptor to this video. If you do decide to make a purchase of anything from the Tempest website, use that referral code, that referral link, and the coupon code. I want a weather station, because you really deep down inside do want one. And if you do, what do they get, Joe?
They'll get 10 big % off, Joe.
They will. Yes, indeed. You know, I wish these two storms would go away, because all day long, every time I was trying to do something, Idalia became Vidalia, Franklin became Frederick. I just could not shake it out of my head and get the darn thing right. But Idalia did make landfall this morning. I woke up at just right at 5 a.m. and saw that it was a Cat 4, 940 millibars, and 140 miles an hour, weakened just a little bit to a strong Cat 3 by the time it made landfall. I did something I normally don't do. I was watching, various channels with their coverage, and I did notice, I don't know, I know you watch the CBS Evening News. It looked like the surge on the east side of Tampa was, in some places around Tampa, St. Pete, if that's where where the pictures were actually from, was fairly impressive. I didn't see too much around where the storm made landfall. I watched these reporters, so you always get the sort of standard stuff when it comes to these, with tropical systems. There's the tree down, the tree on the house, the signs, being windblown and all the rest of it, but I haven't been able to get a gauge as to how extensive the damage was.
It was, and certainly the damage that did indeed ensue was not unexpected. That a lot of, and I mentioned last night that while a lot of people did evacuate, there were still a couple of people who did not. One of them on the CBS Evening News, in fact, stayed in her home and had a tree come tumbling down on her roof, and didn't just, it caused significant damage. And they said, "Did you know what happened when you heard that big thump?" "No, I didn't. I didn't know what it was." "Well, I'm still here."
Well, the thing is, I was switching around from all the channels, and it's a formula, okay? It's a formula, Joe. Have the reporter stand by the ocean, okay? So they have this reporter standing by the ocean saying the waves are crashing on the beach. Now he was at St. Simon's Island in Georgia on the Atlantic coast, and they show the waves coming in. I've seen the waves higher at Orchard Beach when the water came in at high tide. Okay, so that was the first thing. The other thing was, of course, then there's the two, find the person, make sure you find the person that refuses to leave, okay, which of course they did. And then make sure you find the person who says, well, I've been here since Paul Revere made his midnight ride, and I've never seen anything quite like this. And I'm
And they had
just,
one of those, and they had one of those on CBS
yeah, I
tonight
mean,
too.
it's this,
I've
can
been
we,
here 62 years.
right.
Worst I've ever seen it.
62 years, 7 marriages, and God knows how many children I had. And I've never seen anything quite like this. I mean, really? Okay. I'll take your word for it.
They're always looking for the what I call the Al Roker moment, which is when Al got blown down by Hurricane Wilma,
Right.
literally. And they're always hoping for something like that. And when you see somebody standing there and telling you that, oh, it's horrible, and meanwhile, one time, maybe you remember this, they had a reporter and they said, oh, it's terrible, the wind, and meanwhile, way behind that person, while he's describing it, you see a person like casually walking.
Right. I know. Well, look, not to make light of it. I mean, this was a really serious situation, clearly. It's just that, Joe and I both tend to look at this from our years of experience and knowing how television works. But nonetheless, I mean, there was some serious damage that occurred with this as it moved inland. The southern part of Georgia got hit particularly hard around Valdosta with heavy rains. There were a few tornadoes. Now a lot of this has shifted into South Carolina. Most of what happened there in Georgia is gone. I had last night. We had a band that, all that stuff that was from Atlanta South, one band that held together and came all the way up north. So we didn't get much rain out of it. I think we got a quick quarter of an inch, and that was about it. And by the way, I do appreciate a number of people sending me messages saying, I hope you're safe. I hope you're safe. And I really do appreciate it. But I just want to make it clear. Okay. I'm in North Georgia. All right. So if this were New York State, and somebody would say, well, I just heard New York, Long Island got hit with a hurricane, or New York City got hit with a hurricane, it would be the equivalent of me being up in Plattsburgh, right near the Canadian border. I'm almost 300 miles north of the Florida state line. All right, so I'm way up there. So everything was fine, but I do appreciate those of you that reached out. And those of you who did not reach out, well, I know you never cared about me. All you ever wanted was supper on the table and no responsibility. David Fuller hitting the tip jar early. Thank you, David. I haven't watched any of the hype in years. Too many lies. You two are the best. Need more truth out there. Well, I will say this, David. It's not so much that what's being shown is a lie, because that's not the case. I know some people think that somehow there are all these actors and actresses that they have on call that they can stage a hurricane somehow. But now I lost my train of thought. We just try to keep things on an even keel and not go off the deep end, because if Joe and I go off the deep end, that means you really there's something to worry about. And at least certainly for up here, that was never going to be an issue anyway, for not just for me in North Georgia, but for you up in Putnam Valley, anywhere in eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England down to Virginia. There's no issue here. So I'm thinking tonight would have been a good night to have the Perseid meteor shower, because you'd be jumping up and down screaming over the fact that there's high clouds around. But before we talk about where we're going forward weather-wise in the area, shall we let's do some radars, shall we?
Surely, if you would like.
I would like.
Would be most happy to accommodate.
By all means, please do.
Okay. And
oh boy,
I will leave it up to you. I'll start with. What do we start with? How about Charleston?
How about Charleston? My niece is getting married there in October, and I'm not invited to the wedding. So go ahead.
Really? Well, Charleston, South Carolina is right smack in the middle of this circle here, and you can see that there are spiraling bands of moderate to heavy rain north of Charleston. This is, again, the residual or the remnant effects now of what was once. Did it actually hit Category 4?
Yes, yeah. This morning at 5 a.m. on the advisory, it was.
Right. but when it made landfall, they said it was a Category 3.
Yeah, on the next advisory, they knocked it down. They knocked
And,
it down just enough,
now,
and it
does that
actually did look as if um, it did look as if it did weaken a little bit. I think probably because of where it came into the coast, suddenly half the circulation was over land, so the eye started to get a little bit ragged.
it's like when you get a 15-inch snowstorm and you tell the person who might be next to you looking out the window, well, this is not really a blizzard because it doesn't reach the criteria of 35-mile-per-hour winds for 3 hours and temperatures are not low enough, whatever. That person will say, what are you, crazy? So, to a person who was in the direct path of this thing this morning, the fact that it might have been really a 3 instead of a 4, that really didn't make much of a difference.
No, it doesn't.
It really didn't.
It doesn't.
And as you could see, places to the south and west of the center of the storm are pretty well dried out now. It's all out in front. It's what's up front that counts, folks, especially with this storm. And Idalia, indeed, is spread a goodly amount of its rain now across South Carolina, as you can see on the radar out of Charleston. Yes, it is Charleston, Grays, South Carolina, if you will. And let's see, if we go further up the coast, let's go to, I don't know, let's try Wilmington, North Carolina. And you can see that, again, we can actually see some of the residual bands of moderate to heavy rain that is working its way in from off of the coast, moving on more or less a south to north trajectory. So this is all of the tropical moisture associated with, again, what was once Idalia. Just as a matter of curiosity, let's go back.
By the way, on the Wilmington radar, Joe, right now there are 2 tornado warnings. Looks like they're just east of Wilmington. I'm gonna just check on this. But go ahead.
Right. Here, so they might be in this zone right here. The tornado watches. That's another thing that got me a little agitated, was the fact that the reporter who was doing the story down in the Carolinas said, and there are hurricane warnings that are in effect for many counties here. And I'm saying to myself, no, not warnings, watches.
Yeah, those 2 tornado warnings, actually, one just expired.
Right.
And that was in Brunswick County, and then a new one came out for Brunswick and New Hanover counties in North Carolina. Thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located just off Carolina Beach. So it might be a tornado, waterspout / tornado, or maybe there's both going on. I don't know. But, you have that. Okay.
So here's Tallahassee. We were, of course, watching with great interest last night as the storm was approaching Tallahassee in the Big Bend area. But it looks like right now, just a few scattered showers, and these are moving from northwest to southeast, right along the immediate Gulf Coast, as you can see here. So the lion's share of the action pretty well over with down in that area. Let's go down to Tampa Bay and Ruskin, and you can see, again, not much happening. A little narrow band of showers and possibly embedded thunderstorm activity. And even that looks like it's beginning to dissipate or break up a bit with the passage of time, but nothing really much to show you down there anymore. Any place else you'd like to go, or?
No, I think that's good. I appreciate it. I've got the wide radar shot, so I'm going to switch over to that and show everybody here what's going on the big picture, so you can kind of put all the small radars together and come up with a composite look here on the CONUS radar. And we have, it's got this, there's not much on the south or southwest side. I mean, this is all now kind of, this giant comma that is pretty much, east-west oriented, and the center is at the bottom of that comma moving northeastward. So it won't be much longer before the center moves out over the open waters again. And there are some flash flood warnings. There are 3 boxes in there, one that extends back into southeast Georgia. And again, the heavy rains. There's actually a coastal front that has developed back west in western North Carolina. So this rain area is kind of getting enhanced by this coastal front, and a lot of this is pretty heavy. In fact, this zone here, the rain is just kind of is rotating counterclockwise around the center. So there's it's just sitting there. So I imagine that this area here from central North Carolina, south central North Carolina, south and west into the interior of South Carolina up to about Columbia or just west of Columbia, that whole zone is probably going to wind up with many inches of rain before it's all said and done, because it's again not showing much eastward progress yet. But the back edge is in western South Carolina. It's just about all out of Georgia, with the exception of this one area here, this kind of this lingering area around the Atlanta area that actually formed up close to me late this afternoon and has just been moving very, very slowly to the south. One upside, by the way, and there is upside here, when this thing gets out into the open waters of the Atlantic tomorrow, when it's offshore, I'm going to get a nice drying wind that is going to come down. Come on, draw for me. There you go. I'm going to get a nice drying northerly wind behind this. So I'll probably see my dew points come down and have a pretty nice day here in North Georgia. So that's a plus. And all of this is going to be out of the way before too long. I mean, by tomorrow morning, most of the rain is going to be offshore.
And it should feel rather nice as we close out. I can't believe we're closing August out tomorrow, last day of the month. And yeah, even up here, Joe, the dew point temperatures, if the short-term model guidance is correct, here in the Hudson Valley, we should have a dew point at mid-afternoon somewhere around 46 degrees, and somewhere the air temperature, the ambient air temperature, will be somewhere in the low to mid 70s.
Nice.
And I was thinking yesterday we were going to get a goodly amount of high clouds, the northern periphery of the remnants of Idalia making its way as far north as our area. But aside from maybe some patchy high clouds in the morning, that should pretty well move south of our area and out to sea and set the stage for a gorgeous blue sky and bright sunny day tomorrow afternoon. Be a lovely night tomorrow night. I think tomorrow night we're going to have with the winds dying off, there'll be a bit of a breeze tomorrow out of the north, about 5 to 15 miles an hour. Tomorrow night, temperatures are going to range widely from maybe upper 50s to near 60 and urban and coastal locations to maybe as low as the upper 40s in inland valleys like where I am. We might see temperatures near up 48, 50 degrees tomorrow night, or actually early on Friday morning. But as lovely as all this sounds, and I think you will agree, this is all going to go turning around on us later on in the holiday weekend. No, not rain or cloudy skies. It's going to stay sunny and dry throughout the entire weekend. But the humidities are going to be coming on up, and the temperatures are going to be taking a rather dramatic rise upward. Tomorrow, maybe, again, low to mid 70s. Friday, right around 80 degrees or so. Well, actually, more like upper 70s to near 80. And 80 for Saturday. And then here we go, 85, much more humid on Sunday, near 90 on Monday, and probably lower 90s for Tuesday and even for Wednesday of next week. So,
nice time for a 3-day heat wave.
The heat is making a comeback. It's been so difficult. One thing about this summer up here is that it certainly has been humid, but we haven't had too many hot days. Well, guess what? We've had to wait now to September to see heat, and more than just a few hot days maybe looming on the horizon here by the end of the weekend and for next week.
All right, back to Idalia. You could see it here on the floater loop. You've got some thunderstorms in the mix there, a few lightning strikes. I would have thought you would have seen more of them, but there's just a few. But it doesn't really do justice to the intensity of the heavy rain and those brighter white cloud bands that you see. And the center is getting fairly close to the coast. It's south and west of Charleston by a fair distance, but it's getting fairly close to the coast. So it may be moving offshore during the overnight. And on this shot goes up to about, if I can just get this go. There you go. Just to the northern edge of this shot goes, you can see New York City. So it looks like the high clouds just sort of thin out at the moment, right over Long Island, New York City, southern Pennsylvania, and point southward, and they go back pretty far to the west. I was cloudy all day. I still am. The clearing line was only maybe about an hour's drive away and never made progress today, but didn't see temperatures get much above the low 70s. So it was actually quite nice outside today here in North Georgia. And here's the wide satellite view. You can see to the east we have Hurricane Frederick, which still has that big looking eye there.
Not Frederick.
I mean Frederick. See, I cannot. It won't go away, Joe. Will not go away. I don't know why I've got Frederick on the on the brain. Franklin, okay, Franklin. There it is.
And there's proof, ladies and gentlemen, of how long Mr. Joe Cioffi has been in this business. Because when you talk about Frederick, that's 1979. That's 44 years ago.
I know. Isn't that awful?
It is.
And meanwhile, once you get rid of the hurricanes and you get rid of what's going on up in northern New England, it's just kind of waiting for this silly upper trough to get out of the way. Out to the west, and except for some clouds and some showers in the Pacific Northwest and a couple of thunderstorms down in Arizona, much of the weather over the rest of the country is quite nice. Looks like there might be just a little bit of smoke, though. If I'm looking at this, it's that milky, that milky stuff that's not clouds from about Minnesota and the Dakotas. There looks like there's some streaks there going down south into Kansas and parts of Oklahoma and east into parts of Iowa and Minnesota. So that's where I think we mentioned last night about the fire smoke or lack thereof. So that's where it happens to be. And the Storm Prediction Center, there is a tornado watch that is still up for much of coastal South and North Carolina. We've seen a few tornado warnings pop up in there. That's all inside an area of slight to enhanced risk for severe weather. But after this, there's no severe weather being forecast for Thursday to Friday or Friday into Saturday. So SPC can take a break, which is a good thing for them. And this is the 7-day rainfall forecast map, Joe, which is now pretty much a clean forecast map for the Northeast and the northern mid-Atlantic states, back to the Ohio Valley. And, let's count the lower Great Lakes, the Mississippi Valley, except maybe the lower Mississippi Valley. But even there, we're talking about minimal rainfall till you get down to the Gulf Coast. All that white area is no rain for the next 7 days. So that takes us right through next Wednesday that we will not see a drop of rain. We've got rain in the Rockies, rain in the Southwest, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half plus in some places. Also in the Northwest, down into Northern California, and along the Gulf Coast, we see several inches being indicated in parts of southern Mississippi, southernmost Alabama, and touching the Florida Panhandle. So the advisory, let's see if we got the 8 o'clock, because it is 8 o'clock. The 8 o'clock advisory on Vidalia. So this way I get equal time for saying Frederick, or maybe I should have said Froderick rather than Franklin. 32.7 north, 80.9 west. Top winds are 65 miles an hour, moving northeast at 21. It is forecast from the 5 o'clock forecast. They have it sitting right on the coast, northeast of Charleston, just southwest of Myrtle Beach by 2 a.m. And then by 2 p.m. tomorrow, it's sitting southeast of Hatteras and offshore on an easterly track or even a southeast track, which is forecast into the weekend. And then they actually kind of hold it together as a tropical storm. There's a lot of uncertainty with this going out once it gets out there. I mean, on their official forecast, they actually take it southeast and then turn it east-northeast to take it right over Bermuda sometime later Saturday or Saturday night, and then into Sunday, and then northeast from there. But there's so much going on as far as a long range with this. We could speculate endlessly regarding regarding its outcome.
They're
So
not. They're not buying into what some of the models were suggesting the last couple of days, which is that it goes east, then southeast, then south, and then southwest.
no,
And so
because now some of the globals are actually taking it east, southeast, then east, then northeast, then north, then northwest, and taking it up northwest, north of Bermuda toward Cape Cod. But it makes a far, then it turns and goes northeast again. And depending on what model you look at, the GFS, I think it was the GFS, tries to take it to Nova Scotia. The European tries to take it to Newfoundland. The Canadian, I don't even remember what the Canadian did. So there's that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of confusion. You got this with the westerlies pulled up all the way into Canada, and basically ridging. You got the ridge in the Atlantic. You got the ridge that's building into the east from the heat ridge, trying to pushing into the east. It's being left in this sort of no man's land flow. So, I got a hunch that this is going to be around for a while out there.
it's interesting that even on the 2 p.m. Monday position, they still have it as a solid filled circle. Not, in other words, it's still tropical. It's not post-tropical or extra-tropical. So it still has, presumably, all the way out to the beginning of next week of Labor Day, it still is a tropical cyclone with tropical characteristics.
All right. Well, here's the upper air, and you can see the deep trough the fairly deep trough that runs from all the way up into north of whatever that island is in northern Canada. Coming down right along right into the east. Here's Idalia right there. Well, that was supposed to be a circle. Here's Frederick or Franklin, near northwest of Bermuda, going around Bermuda over the top. You've got the ridge is actually, I haven't seen this happen in quite a while, but it's all the way down into Arizona, Southern California. This is about as weak as the heat ridge has been in the last 10 weeks. And it's sort of retreated there. But what's going to happen is the trough in the east lifts out. And, of course, Idalia moves offshore, but you kind of lose the upper feature. The bottom of that trough just sort of gets left behind. Meanwhile, you've got a trough that's dropping down the west coast, so that causes the ridge to reform over Kansas and Missouri and North Texas. And this time around, it actually nudges into the eastern part of the United States over the weekend. We're kind of on the edge of it. And that stays there in the east. Most of the strongest part of the ridge, the upper high is going to be Monday and Tuesday in the Ohio Valley down to to Alabama and Georgia. And meanwhile, you see this what looks like an upper low. That is how the GFS seems to be handling Idalia near Bermuda on Tuesday. And then it kind of barrels back westward because the ridge splits. You got this Atlantic ridge that's building to the east, and you've got the eastern ridge now all of a sudden is back down into the southwest. So it's trapped in this no man's land zone, and it's waiting for something to come down from the north to pick it up, which it does. And you see it there, that little circle that turns northeastward. Actually, this one takes it way south of Nova Scotia, just takes it out east and then into the Atlantic graveyard. Once that ridge goes away, Joe, it looks like the trough wants to come back into the east again. So this pattern relaxation, I don't even want to call it a change. It's really just a relaxation because it looks like it's going to last a week, and then the trough wants to come back into the east again in the latter part of this forecast period. So, this might be the last gasp of heat we'll see.
I also noticed that on the Climate Prediction Center long-term forecast, they have near normal precip in the Northeast on the 6 to 10, but on the 8 to 14-day outlook, they suddenly draw a stripe of above normal precip across parts of the Northeast. So I'm looking at this and saying to myself, what possibly could that be from? But as you just pointed out, that trough kind of regenerates and pivots into the Northeast toward the between the 1 to 2 week time frame. So maybe that's what they're thinking of. Maybe they're thinking that we're going to see an increase in shower activity during the second week of or toward the middle part of September.
Well, that certainly could that may very well be. And here's what it looks like on the surface, because it's actually pretty easy once you get rid of the tropical system. So Idalia's offshore tomorrow. Uh, Franklin is east northeast of Bermuda and moving away, but not moving away very quickly. That's one thing that changed since yesterday, was this thing doesn't seem to be much of a rush to get out of the way. You see this nice high builds into the eastern states. That dry air is going to get pretty far down south, riding the backside of the circulation of the tropical storm to the east, goes offshore. You see where there's some Gulf moisture Friday and Saturday that comes out of western Florida back to the Panhandle into Alabama and Georgia. That just sort of stays focused there. The rest of everybody east of the Rockies, I mean, it's just nothing. It's just nice. And yes, Joe, it starts to warm up on Saturday with the wind going west and the high going out. And then we'll heat up some more Monday and Tuesday. You can still see what's left of Idalia, which is near Bermuda here, just sort of rotates around for a couple of days and then starts to go northwest. Actually, it goes west-northwestward, and you think it's about to hit is it going to go to Chesapeake Bay? But on the middle part of next week, there's a cold front here. This is Wednesday. This is Wednesday night. There's a cold front here and another upper trough that's moving eastward. So that should, assuming that's real, that should kick this out. And this run of the GFS wants to turn it back into a hurricane as it goes out to the east-northeast. I will say this, is that this going offshore, I don't think it's going to do very much. And if you look at the way the precip is structured here, I'm going to switch to the radar view of this on the GFS, and the European's not that different. You'll notice that there's not a whole lot of convection or precip going on near the center. So it doesn't really look all that tropical here after it goes out. And also remember that it's moving out over waters that Franklin just went over and upwelled in a big way. So those ocean water temperatures are about 5 to 7 degrees lower. And that is going to prevent it from really regenerating. And you see it here. Then it starts to regenerate once it gets northwest of Bermuda. Then you start to see convection form back near the center, which I suppose makes sense. But as long as there's a front coming down for later next week, if even if it does something crazy out there, as long as there is a front coming down later next week, that should take it out. So we're not going to really spend, a whole lot of, we're not going to waste a lot of energy trying to, figure out what it's going to do, because there's just too many variables here.
Yeah, once it's out, it's out. Yeah. And again, let's concentrate on the fact that the weather at least is going to kick off for the upcoming holiday weekend. And by the way, did some research. The hottest, at least over the last 50 years, the hottest Labor Day weekend was back in 1980, where I think Saturday was 85, Sunday was 90, and it was like 93 or 94 for Labor Day Monday. So, I mean, it's going to warm up, no question about it. It's going to be close to 90 on Monday, Labor Day this year, but it won't be anywhere near as hot as that Labor Day that we had, or Labor Day weekend we had 43 years ago. But still, it'll be dry, and it looks like it'll be a very nice holiday weekend, about as nice, maybe nicer than what we had for Memorial Day weekend. So the big three summer holiday weekends, the first and the third, Memorial Day and Labor Day, bookending the summer season, which turned out to be very humid, very moist, sometimes very wet. At least we're going to finish out on a great note here with fine, dry, not so humid weather tomorrow and Friday, and things will really start heating up and getting more humid again Sunday and Monday and on into next week.
I just got I got a message from Bill Goodman just now. So he has coined a new term for what we're going to see Idalia become when it goes offshore. He called it a zombie cane, a zombie cane. And I think that pretty well describes it, where the circulation is there, but there ain't much to it. And I think that's what you're going to see it at least for a while. Maybe if it does whatever it does out there, perhaps at some point it'll gets far enough north, and then the dynamics will be better, and the ocean water temperatures will actually be a bit warmer, considering all the upwelling. Oddly enough, that it would have to go north to get that. But again, not really gonna put too much into this right now because I'm tired, and I get to I don't know I get to these points with these storms as you're watching them for days and days and days that when they finally happen, it's just you sort of recognize how brain fried you are, and you need to get a bit of get some recharging. I start not being able to complete sentences very well.
All right.
So let's do a little Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Surely.
There you go. Man always hits his cue when I give it to him. He's just, he's an Oscar-winning talent from way back, our Joe Rayo. Okay, on this Briller Jeopardy, how many days does each city average a clear or sunny day? So we're still on this theme, Joe. That means for the month of August, okay, so let's be clear. The month of August, how many days does each city average a clear or sunny day? And that means that it has less than 30% cloud cover. There could be some clouds, but as long as 70% of the sky is clear, that's considered a clear day. Okay? So we're going to start with Honolulu. Honolulu.
Well, July is the month when Hawaii usually has their clearest weather, and that's because of the trade winds interacting with the volcanic cones. But I'll say in Honolulu, I'll say 20.
You'll say 20, okay. David Fuller says 15. Tyler Fienga says 23. Frank Scalera 18. Keith Rosenberg 19. Frank R 22. Steve LaPointe 17. Lou Arizio 27. Northern Grace 26. Christopher Alley 15. Maggie P 15. Michael Azera 25. Paul Roman 17. I'm going to just tell you, you're all way too high. The answer is 8.
Just 8.
Just 8.
Wow.
Just 8. Okay, the next one, Joe.
Boy, did we blow that one, folks.
The next one is Savig Sal. Savig Sal. Or Las Vegas.
Or lost wages.
Or lost wages. Yes, lost wages, folks. Lost wages.
I'll say 17.
You'll say 17. So did Steve LaPointe. You're both wrong. David Fuller, 16. Tyler Fienga, 12. Patrick Darcy has hit it early on, 22. And Chuck Cardillo, who's the missus, had her surgery, so I hope everything went well, Chuck. I'm sure it did. Chuck is first runner-up at 21. Rich Rothmansky at 22. That's the answer, 22. Maggie P, 20. And William Uber, 22. So 22 is the correct answer. So let's do New York City as measured by Central Park, which is not an airport. So Central Park in New York City in the month of August, Joe.
7.
7. Okay. 7. David Fuller says 13. Tyler Fienga says 8. Steve LaPointe says 17. Paul Roman 14. William Uber 11. Frank R 11. Dub 12. Maggie P, Joe gets it, and so did Patrick Darcy. 9. I
knew it had to be a single number.
Okay, the fourth one on this list is Phoenix, Arizona. By the way, we've got 73 likes. Thank you for hitting the like button. And those of you who haven't hit the like button, here's your opportunity to take us over 100. Otherwise, Joe and I will be on for hours. And that's a threat.
Remember on the telethons, the cerebral palsy and the muscular dystrophy telethon, they'd always, the president or the network station manager would come out in the final hour when they were trying to make it to a certain number and say, well, we've made a decision and you guys could have an extra hour tonight. And everybody would start applauding and they would reach
well, that ain't happening here.
That's not happening either.
Johnny Quest for
Who's the station manager?
Yes. Johnny Quest says 24 for Phoenix, Arizona. Christinapedia 22. You didn't give a guess yet.
23.
23. Paul Roman 8. Northern Grace 27. Chuck Cardillo 26. Christinapedia 22. Steve LaPointe 19. Christopher Alley 19. And those two are one off. It's 18. 18 is the answer. Now, the last one tonight. Okay, the last one. Now, I know if this were the question were for January, we would probably say 0 for this place. Seattle, Washington. Seattle, Washington.
I'll say 10.
You'll say 10. Okay, yes. Well, Robert Lobanicki says 9. And you know what? So did Steve LaPointe, and so did Chuck Cardillo, and so did Christinapedia. They all said 9.
Are they right?
And that's the right answer. 9.
Yes.
Oh God, we do have fun with this stuff.
The Pacific Northwest can be a very dreary place in the winter, but in the late spring and summer, it can be fairly nice, fairly beautiful.
Well, it depends on which side of the mountains you're on.
Yeah.
Because if you're in eastern Washington, you get the downslope. So you're better off over there.
They call Portland, Oregon, the city of roses because in June, I mean, just beautiful. Everything comes busting out all over, so to speak.
It takes until June for that to happen.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. So on that note, we will be back tomorrow night to send off everybody for a holiday weekend. So we will be here tomorrow night, which is Thursday night at 7:35 p.m. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's on the descriptor to this video. Use the referral link and the coupon code I want a weather station for anything you purchase from the Tempest website. And if you do, you'll save money. How much money, Joe?
10%, Joe. 10%.
10%. And then our other sponsor, Omni True Value Hardware. And you'll save money there because they have the best prices in town. They're at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. In the wintertime, they are Long Island's largest rock salt source. And in the spring and summer and in fall, they got mulch and topsoil and lots of other things. 631-756-1125 is the phone number, and the website is
OmniTrueValue.com. One brief rant.
Oh, by all means, please do.
Everybody is talking about, see now, with 13, my thing actually, we're only 11 shy of 100. So when I'm finished with this, we better get to 100. The people, more than a few people tonight saying, can't wait to go outside and see the super moon tonight. Let me tell you something about the super moon. Yes, it is the closest moon of the season.
And it's super, super, super.
Yeah, 221,900 some odd miles away. It is causing higher than normal tides because of its closer approach to the Earth than normal. It supposedly is brighter. I really don't think you're going to be able to note that it is brighter and it's about 12 or 13% larger. You won't even be able to notice that. It's just like the old fable, the emperor has no clothes. You're going to go out there tonight and you're going to say, look at the moon. But tell me honestly, folks, does the moon look any different to you than any other full moon this year or any other full moon that you've seen in your lives? I mean, maybe it'll look bigger when it's near the horizon.
Isn't it also, Joe, isn't it also a blue moon?
Yes, it's a blue moon. Second moon, the second full moon.
Which is just so amazing that we had 2 full moons in 1 month. Oh my God.
Yes.
That's never
Nora,
happened before.
Nora O'Donnell tonight. And believe it or not, the next time we're going to have a super blue moon is in the year 2037. Nora, take your blue moon, take your
Easy, easy, easy. I know where you're going with this.
it annoys me that
I
people
know.
go bazonkers over something that they can see. You're not going to notice anything unusual tonight. No, the moon is not going to look blue. No, the moon is not going to look twice the size of its normal size. It is just another moon in the sky, which may be a little bit bigger. If you have really perceptive eyesight, you'll notice that it is a little bit bigger than normal. But come on, folks. And meanwhile, there are so many wonderful things in the sky that happen, Joe. Sometimes we have like a close pairing off of two planets, but it's like in the early morning. Oh, I ain't getting up for that. Or something like that. But they go bazonkers over blue moon. A woman once took me to task. He said, I don't know why you're so upset about the fact that everybody's making such a fuss about the super moon. As long as it makes people go out and look up and enjoy the view of the moon and enjoy the sky, what harm could be? Well, yeah, I understand. I get your point, but you're making a big deal
Out of
really
nothing. Well,
nothing.
Conroy Jet Joe points out that your metaphor about the emperor having no clothes means technically he is mooning.
Yes, exactly. Yes, well, if he had no clothes and he's parading through the street, yes, he is mooning. And so is everybody else who's looking up at the sky. Joe, my rant didn't work. We're still fine.
You're at 95 because I'm at 94.
Oh.
I can't really think of anything else I want to talk about. I had my rant earlier in the show.
I mean, as Neil deGrasse Tyson, my boss, the Hayden Planetarium, would say, if you went into a pizzeria and normally the pizza is 12 inches wide when you order it, a pizza pie, and you tell the guy behind the counter, I want a super pizza. What do you think you're going to get? The guy's probably going to make the pizza maybe an inch bigger, no more. That's a super pizza. Same thing with the super moon. It's just a little bit larger to the eye as opposed to where it normally looks most other full moon nights. What the heck?
Well, I live surrounded by mountains, so even on a clear night, I can't see the moon until after midnight when it's high enough in the sky and it's over, at least one mountainside. So
Right.
I live this pauper's existence where I can't even share in the joy of the super blue moon.
2 to go to 100.
Just give us the 2 likes for I don't even want to say that.
Come on.
Just give us the 2 likes.
Can I ring my bell? We make it to 100?
Can we just take it to 100, please?
Here's the bell. Let me ring it. Come on.
All right, there's going to be some wise ass that's going to get to 100, and then he's going to click it off and go to 99.
There it is.
All right. Good.
We hit it. We hit 100.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye, folks. Thank you again to
David Fuller.
David Fuller. Thank you, David.
Night, David. Good night, everybody.